Hi everyone, I am John Keneally. I'm a Senior Product Manager of Toast. If you're new to the page or channel, welcome. This is a re-recording of a talk I gave a couple of weeks ago at a Dublin UX meetup hosted in the Workday offices in Dublin. For anyone listening right now with the video disabled or listening on the audio podcast, I'd suggest turning it on or heading over to the website at youngleaders.tech or watching the podcast with the video enabled potentially, as the visual aspect to this presentation will add a lot more to the talk itself. The title of the talk is Beyond the Interface, Rethinking UX from the Inside Out. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to rethink what UX actually means, because I believe we've been thinking too small. UX isn't about what your users see or click on. It's about how things work, how they feel, and the ripple effect your decisions have across internal tools, workflows, systems, and even your own team. So today I'll be sharing some stories and insights from my own journey, from customer support to product management, and from working on shiny front-end features to diving deep into the invisible systems underneath it all, and how that's shaped the way I think about UX now. But before I start on the first section, you'll notice throughout this talk that some slides have a number in the bottom right corner. I've done this before, but it's basically anytime that you see one of these, it means that I've wrote about it on a blog or have a how-to guide and where you can get set up on the same thing and do it yourself. Just simply search for the number on my website and you'll find it. We're going to break this talk into 3 sections. First one is why UX is bigger than you think. So this section is all about challenging assumptions, including my own from earlier in my career. Because I used to think UX was mostly about the visual layer, layout, color, polish. But as I've grown as a product manager, I've learned UX goes way deeper. It's embedded in systems, in workflows, in processes, often in places no one's looking. After reframing UX itself, we'll then move on to section 2. This is the UX in the unseen places. So that's where we look at the parts of the UX that exist beyond the scenes, internal tooling, team handovers, infrastructure decisions, all the stuff that shapes the user experience, even if the user never touches it directly. And finally, solving the problems the right way. This is where we look at how we apply these ideas that we're building. We'll also talk through a few real-world examples, some good UX, some not so good, to show how these ideas play out behind the scenes. So let's start with how UX is bigger than you think, or at least I certainly thought so anyways. UX is just how something looks, right? That's what I used to believe. And if you're working in early stage product or coming from a design adjacent role, that's not a weird take to have. We're surrounded by examples of good UX being equated to a clean UI. Even product marketing teams lean heavily on how things look. But when I started getting deeper into the real work, the discovery, the systems, and the infrastructure, I realized that the most important and powerful UX often has no visual component at all. It's not the button, it's whether the button does what you expect. Or better yet, whether the system solved the problem before you even needed a button. And that shift, that move from surface to substance, is where my journey into deeper UX began. This right here, this is the line that changed everything for me. Like, it's UX isn't how something looks, it's how it works. Once I truly understood that, it was like flipping a switch. Suddenly UX was everywhere. It wasn't just in interfaces, it was in the way a system responded, in how a process was structured, in how you got your work done or didn't do. It's the experience, not just the design. And once you really get that, you start seeing it in places that you haven't noticed it before. Let's jump to a real quick real world example from Apple that I think you're all going to be familiar with. No, not this one. This one's been used too much in presentations. This is what I want to talk about, the iPhone silent switch. A piece of hardware that didn't just survive through almost every iteration of the iPhone, it stayed basically unchanged for 18 years. And why? Because it worked. It did exactly what it needed to every single time. It's visible, it's tactile, you can operate it in your pocket. You can tell at a glance and by feel whether the phone is on silent or not. It's a small, unassuming switch, but it's honestly one of the best examples of UX I could think of when I was coming up with this talk. It doesn't look flashy, but the experience is flawless. This is what happens when we shift our focus from the visual to the functional. Now, I do believe that this is gone in the iPhone 16, but maybe that was necessary. Like, how often do people turn their phones off silent now? Would a multifunction button be more useful? Time will tell on that one. Let me take a step back and tell you a bit of how I ended up here, why UX matters so much to me personally. I actually started in civil engineering. I liked structure, but I liked structure, I liked design, I liked solving tangible problems, but I wasn't quite in the right place. So I pivoted into computer science, which gave me more of a systems and logical mindset. That got me into tech, where I started out as a support engineer. And it was there in support where I really started understanding user pain. I was seeing all the gaps, all of the friction that users felt. I was the one escalating the same tickets over and over again. Eventually, I got sick of my lack of power to fix those issues. So I moved into product. But looking back, I think the whole journey wasn't just about changing roles or learning new skills. It was about discovering that I'm a problem solver. That's the thread that runs through it all. And I think that's what makes UX so interesting. It's not about what degree you have or whether you started as a designer. It's about whether you care about solving the right problems in the right way. For me, UX became the place where all of this engineering, support, product, it all came together. It was the lens through which I look at almost everything I build now. And when I first started in product, I'll admit, I thought UX was just about the UI. Clean layouts, spacing, buttons in the right place. Good UX meant good looking interfaces, right? That was my default understanding. And I don't think I'm alone in that. It's how a lot of people think about UX at the beginning. But that mindset started to shift when I decided to make a move. I left a job that was comfortable, where I was mostly executing, and I took a leap into a role that forced me to get better at discovery. I realized I couldn't grow as a PM unless I actually got closer to the user's problems, not just reading about them in Jira tickets, but hearing them, mapping them, understanding the full journey. That leap was the start of a big transformation in how I think about UX. And it's what led to everything I'm going to talk about in the rest of the session. After taking that leap, I was working on a platform and feature team, a full audit log system. My team owned both the backend infrastructure and the UI that exposed the logs. We had internal teams relying on this and also external access for customers. We did a load of discovery. We planned out flows, we made UI decisions, we scoped technical trade-offs. It felt like real product work, but I still had this lingering mindset that UX was mostly about the screen. Then my mentor asked me a killer question. Do you actually need a UI for good UX? Can good UX not just be a really good dashboard? That was a bit of a wake-up call for me. That experience, that statement set me down a bit of a rabbit hole. I started thinking, what about something makes a good user experience? Does it need to be customer facing? Does it need to look nice? Or is it simply just about solving the problem in the smartest, cleanest way? So I started reframing things. I started letting go of the interface and focusing on outcomes instead. I saw a whole other dimension of UX, and it wasn't even visible at the surface. This is the Venn diagram I always come back to. This is where I found my zone. I sit right in between product operations and UX. I automate, I template, I reduce friction, but I'm not just doing it for efficiency. I'm doing it to make people's lives easier. That's the UX layer. That's the magic sweet spot. It's the support engineer not spending hours in Salesforce. It's the analyst who can finally self-serve instead of waiting on manual exports. It's your dev team not having to chase context because your workflow makes it obvious. That's UX too. It just doesn't look like it on the surface. Then came my redundancy last year, my red light, green light moment, because it forced me to decide, what kind of work do I actually want to do? Where do I add the most value? I thought about product ops. I love structure. I love repeatability, but I love building stuff. I didn't want to lose that. So I had to ask myself, what am I building for? Who am I building for? Who do I actually want to serve? And I realized it might not always be the customer paying for the product, because sometimes it's the person on my own team. And that's what drew me to Toast. I could build, I could experiment, I could go deep on UX, but UX defined my way. I did land in a bit of a unique spot. I joined a platform adjacent fintech team that supports internal tools, Salesforce, NetSuite, DocuSign, enterprise tooling, which meant my users weren't our customers, they were our colleagues. And it took me a second to realize that this actually was a perfect fit, because those internal users, they deserve good UX too, maybe even more so, because they're the ones scaling your customer experience, which brings me to section 2. We tend to associate UX with the things we can see. So buttons, layouts, animations. But the most important UX is often completely invisible. It lives in those messy, back-end, legacy-laden corners of your product stack. And it shows up when something breaks, when someone's confused, when they're relying on the same workflow 100 times a day. This section is all about that invisible UX, the kind that's not even in Figma. It's the kind that happens behind the curtain. Internal tooling, realistically, it's often where UX goes to die. I've seen it happen everywhere, like an internal tool that's been just duct taped together and shipped fast and never touched again. Because, hey, it's just for internal people, right? Except internal users are people too. They're trying to serve customers, they're trying to hit KPIs, they're doing their jobs. And when your internal tools are clunky, confusing, or slow, that pain spills out everywhere. It impacts speed, quality, morale, and many times even staff retention. This was my wake up moment. UX doesn't stop at the edge of the product, it runs all the way through to the systems that support it. This slide here, this sums it up for me. On the left, you've got R&D, all your engineering and your product horsepower. On the right, you've got your external customer. In the middle, that bottleneck there, that is your internal tooling, your platform, your enablement, your go-to-market, your ops teams. If that middle layer is weak, your velocity suffers. Your handoffs are shit. Your support costs spike. But if it's strong, you unlock scale. And in an AI era where orchestration and automation are the name of the game, that internal UX is your multiplier. That's where the magic happens. One of the biggest things about designing for internal teams is the feedback loop. This is my favorite thing about internal product management. It's fast, it's blunt, it's real time. I've had ops stakeholders pinging me on Slack during a rollout, giving feedback on friction points. I've had teams screenshot their UIs with emojis, saying how a flow felt and how long they've had to deal with that pain point, and nobody's listened to them before. They've had this bug for years. We use Jira to track everything, Miro to map it, but it's that loop, that rapid fire iteration cycle that turns a decent experience into a great one. Honestly, it's an addictive way of doing product management. But stepping back from the theoreticals, let me just show you a visual description of how that process actually looks. This is one of our internal customer journey maps. It might look overwhelming, and it kind of was, but it was the first time we ever visualized a full experience someone went through internally to complete the journey for this product. Doing this gave me and my team empathy towards our stakeholders. It gave us a shared language. It made the problems visible. Zooming in a bit, this section here, this was my first project. This is where we had the highest pain concentration at the beginning. That cluster of yellow stars here, that's manual tasks. We hadn't realized this part of the flow was such a black hole of time and frustration. But once we saw it laying out like this, it showed the real value of what we were fixing. With the fast feedback loops and using Miro boards to share on workshops, another benefit to internal customers is that we iterated and iterated, and we iterated our way to the final product. What made this journey so effective was how visual and collaborative it was. Even better, it played really well with AI. After we exported this frame to PDF, I could just send it to ChatGPT with a simple prompt. Green stickies are known facts, yellow stickies are unanswered questions, and stars are manual steps. This context really works well in getting responses and ideas to help us move forward quickly. Once we finished the project, we simply merged that new user journey back into the original one. This top one on the top right, that's the project I just showed you. But this one at the bottom, that's another project, all wrapped up and ready to be added back in after the pilot. The beauty of this setup is it gives us this living, reusable map. Everything sits on a single frame as well, so it's easy to export. Just simply right-click the white frame and it exports it to PDF, and you can use that for context in your ChatGPT or your AI tooling. This makes starting new projects and kicking off discovery so much faster for our team. This brings me to something I deeply believe in, that you need to treat your team like a product. If you're investing in how your product works for customers, why wouldn't you invest in how your team works for itself? That means documenting your own UX, your own ops, your own decision trees. It means building discovery for internal improvement, just like you do for a feature. And at the end of the day, UX isn't just about screens or design. It's about solving the right problems the right way. For your users, for your team, for your organization. That's what UX in the unseen places really means. And if we do it well, the impact compounds. Good UX doesn't just happen during sprints or design reviews. It's most important when the pressure is high, when deadlines loom, or when something's gone wrong. If you haven't built systems for that pressure, the cracks will show. This is when processes, tooling, and empathy really get tested. One of the easiest ways to improve team UX is to automate things that you do more than once. create templates, automate steps, use Slack workflows, Confluence templates, Jira automation, whatever suits your team, whatever tools you're using. Every time I've introduced one of these, someone says, oh, wow, that's really handy. Investing 30 minutes in one automation now might save your team hours per week. I've written in detail, loads of detail about these small automation wins, Slack emoji triggers, Zoom AI, Jira visual tweaks, and more. They're all in the blog. Just simply search for automation. I won't put all the numbers here, but search for automation, the word automation in my blog, and you'll find them all. Each one of these is a small UX upgrade that removes friction in your daily work. Event storming isn't just for engineers. If you haven't seen this before, it's a brilliant tool for internal teams as well. Use it to map out your workflows, your pain points, your triggers, your bottlenecks. Get everyone visually aligned before you dive into the tooling to actually fix it. We use this approach to actually shape our Jira workflows and improve our process visibility. We simply just grab the workflow diagram, like you see here, dropped it in, and we started adding notes. What are the pain points? What's the reactions, the triggers? How do we get from code review to testing? That kind of thing. We discovered a lot of stuff that was done manually that we could easily automate and saved a bunch of time for our engineers. So it did help us also build this shared language. We spotted inefficiencies, like I said, and we surfaced edge cases that we missed when we were trying to figure out where we could speed up the process. I'm also a big believer in way of working docs. You'll have seen this before. I talk about this a lot. This isn't just some static wiki page. It's a living artifact. It evolves as your team grows. It's where we document how we communicate, how we run meetings, and what's expected. Need to change the sprint planning? Check the doc. Disagreements on Slack etiquette? Refer back to the doc. Check again. Having this shared reference point makes retros way more constructive. You can just talk about it, check what it's written about the way of working that you want to change, and change it. Try it out. If it doesn't work, change it back. It's simple. Great. Really effective for hiring new staff, onboarding new engineers quickly. Have you ever wished you had an instruction manual for your teammates? This is what a personal user manual is. It helps you understand how someone works, what they're great at, what they struggle with, and how they like to receive feedback. It builds empathy and it does it fast. I've seen teams build better trust by just sharing these at onboarding or team kickoffs. You also don't need to start every discovery from a blank canvas. This is the template board I use in Miro for all of my new initiatives, and this is my present to you all. This is available on the Miro marketplace now, actually, and you can get it from this QR code here. Simply scan the QR code and it'll bring you straight to the template that you can add to your own boards. This has customer journeys, it has system diagrams, it has problem spaces, retro boards, opportunity solution trees. It's all here, ready to go. I've added a QR code here if you want to try the board yourself as well. Also, if you are listening to this or watching and you found this board useful, you have some workshops of your own that you think I might find useful or that I might find to be useful additions to this board. Let me know. I'm always on the lookout for new ways of doing things and new ways of workshops and new ways of practicing better or different types of UX. Sometimes, I wonder, did you spot this? The most subtle UX changes have the biggest impact. So this is the one I might have shown you earlier. I've actually done a bit of research as well and found the best backgrounds for my Miro boards. This color here, like a lavender, this contrast makes the boards far easier to read while also remaining professional. So this is the color code written on the screen here. Try it out, see what you think. It's amazing how much goodwill you can earn by just fixing the small things that annoy your users and your coworkers. This works for both your own team and the stakeholders that you deliver fixes to. You might not think that fixing one annoying bug or slow Jira status matters, but it does. Fix 5 of them, and suddenly people trust you to solve bigger problems. They'll also have more time to help you with discovery. This is the domino effect in UX. Small wins stack into big impact. So just to put a bow on that and recap, UX isn't just about buttons, spacing, or visuals. It's about the entire experience from the first touch point of your engineers to the last impression from your customer. When we think big picture, we stop reacting and we start intentionally shaping the experience. That's where the real impact lives. So, what happens when we don't think about UX? Users build workarounds, support teams drown in tickets, internal trust drops, and eventually even great ideas start to feel like bad products because the experience was never part of the plan. Ignoring UX doesn't make it go away. It just means that someone else, usually your customer, has to solve the problem themselves. Here's a real-world example from my own home, my child's puzzle. This looks simple, right? This stupid little annoying toy has a lot to teach us about friction, feedback loops, and designing for joy. Because even toddlers have an opinion on good. The visual is fun. It's got frogs, colours, cheerful energy. Let's take this first half at face value, and let's show you what the people who created this puzzle considered to be the journey that they were aiming for. I can guarantee you they did not do this, but let's pretend. Parent opens the box, toddler dives in, puzzle pieces pop in and out, smiles all around, everyone's happy. This is the intended experience, one that leads to repeated use, happiness for the toddler, and peace for the parent. This is what good UX should feel like. Here's the full puzzle. The shapes on the right, they are not perfect shapes. So what happens when the toddler tries to put them back the wrong way around? Frustration, confusion, tears. The design has unintentionally set them up for fail. That flow from earlier, broken. What was supposed to be a moment of fun becomes a battle. The child struggles, the parent struggles, the joy is gone for everyone involved. Instead of a smooth interaction, we have constant friction, all because of a small avoidable detail, a missing requirement between the design and the infrastructure. Things did not end well. That product is now banned from the house. It's a small design oversight that has created such a user experience so frustrating that has completely destroyed the value. UX isn't a nice to have. It's the thing that literally determines whether your product stays or goes. So let me share another UX fail. This is a well-timed one. I came across this a couple of days after I found out I was speaking for this talk. I went to deposit a check at this ATM, but it was out of cash, right? No big deal. Cool. Checks don't need cash in the machine. But the designers didn't consider that in their flow. Because the machine couldn't give out cash, they disabled everything, including the check lodgements. So now the whole machine became useless, even though it didn't have to be. One broken assumption, and the entire journey collapsed. Now for my final example. This is a pair of high-end headphones. So these are the Bose Ultras. I got these maybe 6 months ago. Previous model was brilliant. One of the best pieces of tech I've ever owned. Comfortable, excellent sound, intuitive UX. I bought this model without hesitating when I was ready to buy a new set. And honestly, I do regret it. Great sound, still super comfortable. Noise cancellation is still great, but the user experience is a complete disaster. What I'm about to walk you through is just one small area of this friction in their UX, but it's just a death by 1,000 cuts. They all stem from isolated design decisions that just didn't add up together. The first problem, that the power light doesn't stay on. I'm assuming this is to save battery. Then they removed the power button. Was it for slicker design, minimalist look, maybe waterproofing? Whatever the reason, they removed a dedicated control for critical action. That's a bad call in my books. So they had to put the power button somewhere, obviously. So they merged it with the volume button. Again, maybe understandable given the hardware constraints, but it's another compromise that just adds confusion. And now, tap once to turn it on, but you have to wait 3 seconds for that to turn on. You hold it down to turn it off. It just feels like guesswork. UX by trial and error. A simple task, turning the thing on, becomes unnecessarily unclear. So what's the end result? These headphones drive me mad. It's because there's no light, I never know if they're on or off. There's no dedicated power button, and the on-off logic is super weird. So I'll start playing music thinking I'm turning them off. I'll enter Bluetooth pairing mode thinking I'm turning them on. Most of the time, I just genuinely don't know if they're on, off, or just simply ignoring me. And that uncertainty adds friction every single time I use them. These examples I've talked about should help you understand that UX is a mindset that your team needs to adopt. It's not just a role that you hire for. If you're designing anything, tools, processes, internal systems, you are responsible for UX, whether it's a button or a workflow. So if UX is a mindset, then everyone who builds experiences needs to own it. If it causes friction, it's UX. That small delay, that weird workaround, the thing that people just live with. And that means you can improve it. You don't need permission. You don't need a new title. You just need to notice it and care. So start looking for UX everywhere, because the moment you start seeing it is the moment you'll start changing it. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. If you found value in what you heard, please share it across your social platforms. It helps us to reach others who might appreciate it just as much as you did. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit us at youngleaders.tech for more insights and resources. Along with our podcast archives and meetup recordings, we now feature exclusive weekly tips. These tips aim to improve your leadership skills, your job hunt or career progression, as well as in-depth blogs on product management, product operations, and support-driven development. Whether you're advancing your career or just starting out, there's something there for everyone. And if you, or someone you know, have something to share with our audience, we're always looking to connect with new speakers or writers. Please reach out through any of the contact links provided on our website or reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you join us again for the next episode.